Hi everybody, it's Marsha Casper Cook, and we have a great show today. Always when it's romance, it's always fun. We have two great guests on. They've been on before, Irene Lawless and Delta James. So hello everybody.
Hi.
How is everybody? Okay. So
Irene's down in Key West. How bad could she be?
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm living a rough life right now.
know,
yeah, and I'm in Chicago. It's so dingy here, you have no
Ugh.
idea. We don't
you
see
probably don't want to
sun.
hear how nice it is here in Florida.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, sunshine. Even if it's like 30 or 40, when it's 50 here and sunny, we're happy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I mean, we are very happy. But now, like at 3:30, it starts getting dark. It's not dark till 4:30,
Mhm.
but you can tell it's coming on. It's not good.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Anyway, that's why people read romance because they like to have some
Don't have
happiness.
anything else better to do in the winter, right?
Well, I don't know. Here, sometimes it gets 20 below.
Ugh.
Ugh.
Yeah.
It used to be 20 below wind chill, but now it's like 20 below really. So I don't even know what that is. Yeah, not great. But so we like the summer. We don't have much of it. It stops at October. It starts like May. So we don't have that many
Mhm.
months. But anyway, all right. So let's hear who you are. Okay, Irene, you want to just tell everybody who
Oh,
you are?
sure. Yeah. So
Good.
I'm a romance author. Focus on contemporary romance. My books are steamy. I've been doing this for 5 years now. I published my first book in July of 2020. I have westerns, which are really my best sellers. I have a series that's set down here in Key West, and then I have a small one that's in northern Wisconsin. And I'm did an anthology with the Spice Girls, and then the offshoots from that, the Pelican Point books, and then I'm working on a co-write right now with Delta, um, and having a blast and learning a ton.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, so like we just said, I've got a great life. I can't complain at all. I'm having a
All right.
blast.
We'll do a knock wood on that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And Delta,
I'm a
let's hear
USA
who you
Today.
are. I know who you are. You give everybody great, great advice. Even though I've been doing this 16 years, I like the attitude that you have is what I have, but you just emphasize it a lot more than I do, and it's great. I love it. So tell everybody who you are, and then I'll try to remember to tell everybody who I am afterwards. Okay,
I'm a
Delta.
USA Today best-selling author. I published my first book in July of 2018. I focus on romantic suspense, both contemporary and paranormal. I write very steamy books. I'm very picky about who I co author with or what projects I attach myself to. Irene and I are having a blast. It's really fun because we're both really strong personalities and we we're good enough friends that neither of us worries about, oh, she's not going to like me or I'm going to hurt her feelings
Right.
or
Right.
any of that crap. I had to sort of beat her
Yep.
up the first time when she said, yes,
Yep.
but you're the one who knows. And I'm like, that's bullshit.
Yep.
I
Yep.
mean, there's some stuff I know that I can help her with,
Yep.
but this is a co-write. That means
Mhm.
we're partners. We're equal partners. That's
Right.
it. We
Right.
each bring strengths and we capitalize on those strengths. And that's just the way I see it.
Right.
I don't get into this
And
whole time just
there was a time when we were doing this first prequel, this co-write, where Delta was stressed out because she had a lot of shit going on,
Yeah.
um, and we were messaging back and forth, and in Messenger, you don't quite get everything that's going on, and so my husband and I were like, let's just go up there and have a face-to-face chat with her and make
Right.
sure
Right.
everything's okay,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because there were things where like we weren't quite sure which direction we were going in or if we were doing the right thing or
Right.
what. And once she and I were like face to face and talking it through, we're like, there's no problem here. Everything's great.
what
This
did
is
we think was a problem?
right, exactly. There was no problem. And
Well, right.
this is
I
perfect.
know a lot of people don't call people on the phone, but I do. Uh,
Hmm.
Delta knows that. We try not to talk too long because then we'll have nothing to talk. No, that's not true. We will have something to talk on the
You always
show,
have something
but
to talk about, Marsha.
right, we can talk. But I believe in that. The messages are one thing, But when you're actually friends with someone that
Mhm.
it's not just like, hi, how are you? When you actually care about them, I think a call on the phone is not a bad idea,
Right.
We do
'cause
calls on the phone, we do messaging, we do texting, we do video
yeah,
calls. We
right.
and we only live what, less
We're
than
an hour
90
and a half
minutes from
apart.
each other,
Yeah.
so we can meet. I mean, it's not that big a deal.
Right, right,
Right.
My
right.
dogs always like it when we meet at my house because they have her husband Nathan trained to bring them
Yeah.
Wendy's.
Yeah. Nathan, my
Right.
husband brings them hamburgers. They love him.
They're
It's
like,
hilarious.
"Oh, Uncle Nathan's here!"
Uncle Nathan's here. Exactly.
Yeah,
Oh, you know
and
what I mean?
I
Isn't
do
that
think,
nice?
personal contact is nice, but if you can't do that much, then at least call the person and
Oh
hear
yeah,
their voice.
Right.
I've had people on here that are doing anthologies, they've done them, and they've never talked to each other. And it's
I can't
amazing. The
imagine.
only time they've ever talked is on my show.
Yeah,
Wow.
I can't even imagine.
I
I
can't
know,
either.
me
Think
either. Me
if
either.
you can't meet
But
face to face, I think even better than a call is a video call through Facebook.
Mhm.
Because
yeah,
somebody can say something and you can look at their face and think, yeah, no,
yeah,
that's not
right.
what
Well,
you,
that's
there's
true.
something else going on here I'm not getting. So
Right.
I think
Well,
that
that's
those are
true.
really important.
And you're right. Sometimes in a message, you just, and sometimes someone isn't good on Messenger and they give you a short little thing. And that's just how they are, but not really how they are in person,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
because everybody gets so many emails and they're talking, and I get a lot of emails and I don't even know who everybody is. I'm trying, even if you unsubscribe, I have a bad habit of if I see something, they're offering something, I like to see what it is. I'm not going to do it, but I see what it is, and then they keep me on their list, which is not good. So I'm going to try not to do that. So anyway, I will say who I am. Also, I am a writer, screenwriter, and podcast host. And Michigan Avenue Media is my company. I used to have be an agent for the Marcus Bryan, and it was too hard. I was that for my 15 years, and it was impossible to get. I handled all new people, and it's almost impossible to get anything through. So
Mhm.
I think when I tell people that writing, if they have a script, they should try to write it as a book because unfortunately, they're not going to see the script, but they will see the book. I've used my characters. That's what I've been doing, using characters, but it doesn't turn out the same way. But I tell people try to do that. So at least it's not in a drawer. So anyway, and I've had a couple people on that are still writing from all those years ago because they haven't given up. So one of the reasons I do this show is because I don't want people to give up. And just because you have one book that didn't sell, that doesn't mean the others won't sell as well. And if you
Write
love
another
writing, you
one.
should, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you got to keep going. And Delta wanted to talk about co-writing. So I'm not
Mhm.
going to, let's just talk
Mhm.
about that because that's important because it is difficult to do. So how are you
It,
two,
it,
how did you decide that this was right for both of you?
I
Well,
think
one thing for me. So number one, Delta is a powerhouse. So I've
Yes.
been
Yeah.
in her house. Just like my husband and I will go up probably like once a month, Delta, something like
yeah.
that. We'll just go up like on a Sunday,
Yeah.
and Delta and I we brainstorm, we talk the industry, we talk about everything, right?
Yeah.
And I've also sat there and watched her work, and she is a powerhouse. You know how some people, certain things like math comes really easy to them, or
Yeah.
certain things come
Yeah.
easy. Writing comes very easy to Delta. Like she can belt out
Yeah.
half of a book in like a day. It is
Yeah.
insane, and it's
Yeah.
just so easy. And then she's going back and she's editing, of course, but she gets that first draft down like that, and
That's
it's good.
because she has something that takes, she has confidence.
Yeah, well,
And
and she
that's
has a
that's a
system
really
built
hard thing to
around
do when you're
her.
writing. It's tough.
Exactly, and she just had she was almost like we're very good friends, but she was almost kind of like a mentor to me in a lot of ways
Yeah.
because she has she's only been doing it 2 more years than I have, but she's got so much experience
Yeah.
when it comes to traditionally publishing, building your brand,
Yeah.
like really getting yourself out there. Imposter syndrome is a thing,
Yeah.
and it's with everybody. It's across all industries. And she is the best at taking us to task. Like Annie has it too. Annie Carlisle.
Yeah.
And, Delta is really great about smacking both of us around saying, knock that off. You guys are just as good as everybody else. You have every right to be here at the table. And I really wanted to like step into her shoes a little bit. And when she actually offered to do a co-write with me, because she'd been doing them with Annie, and I was blown away at how well they were doing and how Annie was just like blooming, right? She was doing so great. And Delta offered to do it with me, and I jumped at the chance. I was like, I don't care what it is we're writing, because I don't do romantic suspense. I've never done it before. This is very new for me.
Yeah.
But I'm learning so much.
Yeah.
She's like a fountain of knowledge, and I'm able to go. I found that, I can go toe to toe with her. I can say, hey, I'm not quite sure if I agree with this. And she and I will just talk about it, and we'll figure it out. And we easily come to a consensus. And, she comes to me and says, this doesn't work. And I'm like, I totally agree with you. So she and I feel like she and I work very, very well together.
Oh, yeah. I absolutely agree. It's such a quote unquote labor of love. I mean, I adore Irene as a friend, and she's kind of like a little sister I never had. And we just have this ability, and we can go toe to toe. We're both pretty strong individuals and pretty powerful women.
Right.
But it never degenerates into name calling or accusations or anything. It's always about the work. It's about the character. It's about this. It's about that. And it's like, oh, God,
well,
you're right.
That's the thing about powerful women. Powerful women can work together. I think powerful women can work well, because I think a lot of times, even in business, which you both are in, and Delta, we've all been in business, and that men already start out thinking we don't know what we're doing. And and so when you have to start at that level, sometimes you have to just get your courage and go, listen, this is how it is, because that is what happens. They can say we've come a long way, but sometimes not so much. So you have to be strong.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think it helps that the friendship helps the business side, because we really care about each other, and we care that the other one is successful, and we care that we don't let the other one down. I mean, Irene always talks about, I don't want to let you down. Well, I don't want to let Irene down.
Right.
I mean, it's a mutual thing. Yes, I produce really a lot because I've figured out how to do it and blah, 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 blah. But the fact of the matter is, I don't see myself as any better than her or Annie. I know different things than they know.
Right.
I've had more success because I started out differently. I got lucky, and I'm smart enough to capitalize on that luck. But I don't sit around going, "Oh, I'm the senior writing partner," or "I'm better than they are." I don't do that.
She doesn't do that. I can attest to that.
No, I know that. And that's one of the things why I like to have you on all the time, because people, when they're listening, they see who you are, and they understand that this is not easy.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's hard.
The idea, I always say this, if Barbara Cartland was still alive, I'd go to England and kill her, because she gave this idea that romance writers sat around in full makeup, jewels, and daphnis gowns with their little fluffy dogs eating bonbons. No. And that's what being a romance writer was, and it's not. I mean, it's just not what it is. I mean, it's yes, I sit around, but I'm usually in pajama pants and a tank top. But so you don't have to get dressed up like you do to go out to a real job, but it's still real work. And I think part of the time, people who have a writer for a friend that aren't writers themselves, they don't get that. They don't see that the person who's writing has a job too. And they can't just blow off everything. And they can't just, I have a lot of writer friends that their families all say, well, you don't work, so you can go do this. And you don't work, so why don't you go do that? And it's like, Irene can tell you, if you get on Facebook and look, I'm on Facebook at 6 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get off until 10 o'clock at night. Do I sometimes go out and take my dogs for a drive in the sunset? Yes, because they like that.
But even then, you're working because
Yes,
you're
but even
brainstorming stories.
I'm usually
Right,
brainstorming stories or
right,
calling
I
Irene
think
on the
I-
phone or
yeah.
doing something else. But I mean,
Right?
we're working all the time. It's just because we don't go out to an office. We don't have a time card that we punch.
Right.
It's not always seen. And I think it's even more difficult for someone before they become really successful where people can see. When you're first starting out and you're getting that first book out and everybody's like, well, so what? You're out a book, big deal. And they don't get that it is a big deal. Finishing
It is a big deal. Well,
huge
I
deal.
think you and I have talked about the fact that when someone calls for advice and I give them, I try to tell them what they need to do. By the end of the conversation, they go, well, I'm not sure about this,
Right.
because it's hard. And I
It's hard.
I tell them what they need to do because
Yeah,
I know what they need to do. And
it's
hard. And there's a lot of
it's
steps.
hard work. And it's a lot of mentally hard work and emotionally hard work because you work so hard to get this product out there and you do the best you can and you've got a lot of emotion into it.
Yeah.
And then you put it out there and either if the world ignores it or worse yet, they hate it.
Yeah.
You kind of sit there and think, now what do I do? And I had a woman ask me that. She said, nobody read my book. Nobody bought it. Nobody this, nobody that. What should I do? I said, write the next one.
Yeah.
And she looked at me like I'd grown a second head.
Right.
But that's the God's honest truth. You have to write the next one. And I always like when you're at a party and somebody says, what do you do? And you say, oh, I'm a writer. I'm a romance novelist. They go, oh yeah, I've always wanted to write a book. I can do that. And my response is always the same, which is,
if you
go
could,
ahead.
you'd already done it.
Yeah.
Give it your best shot.
Yeah.
Because people don't understand how difficult it is. And
Well, other writers, we all understand how hard this is. And that's why we become friends because we know. I feel sometimes like I'm working 24 hours a day. Even if, because I do go to bed
when you're
late.
sleeping, you're thinking about, I was not going to write a holiday story this year. What's it going to do? Just, I didn't get to it. And I thought, well, screw it. I'm not going to do it. And I woke up one morning and I woke up at 4 a.m. Chris got up at 6. She walked into the workroom and I'm just banging away on the laptop. Yeah. And she said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm writing a holiday novella. She said, I thought you weren't going to do that. I said, yeah, I know, but I woke up and I had the story. And I did. I had the characters are 2 characters I have. They literally woke me up and said, it's time to tell our story. We have a great story for you to tell. And so that's what I did. And it's just like my PA, Renee, said, she said, what do you mean we have a holiday novella? I said, well,
that's not on the schedule.
You can see her mentally looking at the schedule going, no, there's no holiday novella on that.
Yeah. It just happens. I mean, that's who we are, and then even when you finish something, and I was talking to Delta, I said, I finished something and they go, they have more story. So I have to do another part of it, because you don't, they're always in my head, my characters.
Yeah.
I wish I could get them out sometimes because I don't really know how to relax that well. I'm not good at that.
One of the things I taught Irene is how to write from an outline.
Yeah.
And because she was a total pantser like I was. And she said, I don't know that I can do that. A plot. And I said, no. Plot's different than an outline. I can't write from a plot. That just isn't happening. The great thing about an outline is it sort of gives you a roadmap. But if you decide halfway to the destination you want to go a different way, you can. It gives you a lot more flexibility.
So what do you do? Go by chapter? Is that what you do when you're doing your outline?
Yeah, I do literally do what we did for the novella that we put out is we did an overall concept, and then we did a chapter and we broke it down by point of view, who was going to write what. And then, but we have the whole thing so that when I'm writing mine, I can see what's coming up. Irene can see what's coming up. We can set up those things so that when you read through it, it's really seamless.
Right.
It's very hard to tell who wrote what. And I will tell you with Irene and I, it's because we had our hands all over each other's stuff. I mean, and there was no, I'd like to change what she says here to da-da-da-da. It was like, I changed it where she said this. I made her say this because of this. Oh, that's a good idea. I changed it. He said that. we don't get into my character, my chapter. It's
Right.
our book.
It's about the story. Yeah, 100% about the story. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you write this whole thing and it becomes seamless. And I think you're working to each other's strengths and you're working to what works best for the characters and you're bringing your strengths to that. And for me, it's a lot of fun. I mean, we had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun doing this. And, when we got it back from our line editor, the note she said to me, she said, I am so angry at you two because this is a teaser. I have no idea what's going to happen, and I really want this now.
And she was really worried about the characters, and that's exactly what we want.
And Irene goes, that's what we want, right? I said, absolutely. That's what we want.
Right.
Every single reader who does it. And but Irene said to me, I said, do you want to just write a straight up romantic suspense? What do you want to write? She goes, I'd like to sort of dip my toe into dark. And I said,
I wanted to try it.
I don't do dark. I do darkish. I have characters with dark sides and they can be morally gray, but they do have a moral center.
I prefer darkish anyway, so that worked for me.
So,
right.
So we did it and we had a lot of fun with it. And it's setting up those character arcs. And what we did was do a prequel set 10 years before the first novel. But it sets up all of the backstory for the characters. So when you get to this series, you're going to know these characters. You're going to care about these characters. You're going to see them go throughout the entire series. You're never going to lose Jesse and Raven, who are the main characters in this novella.
So how long was the prequel? How long?
24,000 words, something like that.
Somewhere in there. Hang on a second. I can pull it up.
Well, that's a lot, though. I mean, that's a lot for
Yeah, it was standard novellas going in an anthology or promotion anthology for
right. That's right.
Assassin Richmond.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So whoever you saw in there, you're going to take and put him other places now.
It was almost 24,000 words, and it's basically the setup. You're going to understand when we start the series, and book one comes out. You're going to know who Raven and Jesse are. You're going to know how they got where they got. And
I think that's a really great idea. Really good idea.
It's a good story up to the point where it ends. I mean, it's a very good story.
Right.
But you're going to be left going, what happens? And then
you're left on the edge.
See, that's a good thing because that's what happens to me where I ended up making 3 novellas into one, because I write with a lot of characters. And when you write with a lot of characters, you don't always have time to get to them the way you want, if you're making a shorter, like a novella. So then that's what happens to me, because I end up saying, oh, there's more story. So then I'll have to do more. I wish I could write just with a few characters. I want to, but I can't. I've tried.
I think when I talk to readers, and I think that's something a lot of writers don't do, is talk to their readers. But when I talk to readers, one of the things they say is they like seeing, in a series, they like seeing characters from book to book.
They've seen before. Yeah.
Yeah. And not just sort of hi, Jesse walked through the hallway. They want to see an interaction with that character. They want those characters to be there. And so you learn to integrate them, and you learn when you're putting somebody in, don't put anybody in you don't plan to use unless you're going to kill them off.
Exactly.
That's
right.
Unless you're going to kill them off, don't put them in unless you're going to use them. So it's a lot of fun to do, though. It's how my mind, we were talking about how I got to writing romantic suspense. And the fact is, I've read romantic suspense all my life. When other kids were reading Nancy Drew, I was reading Mary Stewart and Phyllis A. Whitney, which are, they're a whole lot different. So I've always read romantic suspense. So when I started to write, that's kind of my thing. And when Irene and I were first talking, and she said, why do you write romantic suspense? I said, because it's how I think. It gives me, for me, it gives me a framework to craft my novel.
Right.
And
I write like a movie. And so it just comes that to me. That's how I see it. But, you know,
Exactly.
and when I get reviews, they go like, "Oh, this sounds like a movie," because that's how I see it. I don't, that's what happens to me when I write,
Yeah.
and it just,
I'm the
but
same way. I see it. It's like it's playing in my head, and I'm just writing it down.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Mhm.
I think that now people like that because of they're used to watching series on TV a lot.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
You know, everything I'm watching one series after another. And if then if you don't know what's happened, you go, well, why did they not tell us what happened to them?
Right.
Because
Mhm.
that's how I feel, you know.
And I
You-
do think that when you're going to conclude a series, you conclude it. You give everybody, you don't want them going, well, what happened to so and
I
so?
know.
Why didn't you tell me this?
Yeah.
And I think, I'm sorry, I think as writers, we owe them that. They have certain expectations. And Irene and I were talking about the difference between writing straight up contemporary romance and romantic suspense. And I said to her, one of the things you have to learn with romantic suspense is kind of leaps of logic you can take in a contemporary romance or even in just a straight up paranormal
Yeah.
romance. You can't take in romantic suspense. Your romantic suspense readers will go, nope,
Yeah.
sorry, it
Right.
doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And you have to be really careful about research and about, we
Yeah.
missed something that our line editor caught, and we both went, how did we
Yeah,
miss
it was a book.
it?
How did we miss that?
And I would say 90% of readers would never know that. But
Right.
no one
Right.
did, and so it's that kind of authenticity, and it's when you work with a co-writer, you work with your editors, you work with your beta readers, they need to know that that kind of feedback is really critical.
Yeah.
Irene borrowed my beta readers to do a book, and she said, "Oh my God, these people!" And I said, "I know
They were great. They were
I,
great.
Yeah.
I always warn people if they say, "Can I send it to your beta readers?" I'm like, "Yes, but you need to know they're not afraid to speak their minds because
No,
I
they were
trained them that
perfect.
way.
Yeah.
I trained them that way. I trained them to look for plot holes. I trained them to look
Right.
for,
Right.
Mhm.
and they are supposed to tell me, nope, that doesn't work.
Mhm.
Well, you have to be right, but you have to
You
be
have,
careful who they are.
oh yeah,
Oh
you,
yeah.
you need, and I think you need a wide range. I
Yeah.
mean, I have everything from a girl in her 20s to a woman in her
Yes.
50s.
Yeah.
Everything from a woman up in rural Canada to a woman who lives outside of London.
Right. Right.
These are people who have really disparate backgrounds. But they bring, to me, that brings strength to the group. And they're very comfortable talking with each other, talking with me, talking
Mhm.
with Chris, who coordinates everything for me, and that kind of thing. And it's really fun. I really enjoy. I grew up in a family that we sort of debated things, and I enjoy that. I find that energizing.
Yeah.
So, but I know for some writers it's very hard. They sort of like get to the end, they give it to the beta readers, and they really don't want to hear there's anything wrong. And
Right.
what happens is beta readers learn that, well, doesn't matter what I tell her, she's not going to listen.
Right.
And so they either quit beta
Right.
reading
Right.
or
Well, yeah.
quit caring, you know.
That
Mhm.
that defeats the purpose.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's
one of the toughest things for any author to learn is to get feedback, and you
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
to. I mean, you have to put. Delta and I talk about it all the time. You have to leave your ego at the door because if you
Oh, yeah.
want your book to be the best it can possibly be, you need to be able to take the feedback that the store or the chapter that you thought was brilliant doesn't flow well, or it doesn't click with the readers, or it slowed them down, or whatever. Or if there are plot holes, like if there are plot holes all through your story, you're not going to have a successful novel.
Right.
I mean, it's just
Right.
not going to work. And
They can't be
I
wondering
love.
everything. Yeah.
What was that?
They can't be wondering everything.
Right, exactly. Well, and what I loved about I borrowed, what was it, 4 of them, Delta? I borrowed. Yeah, they so kind of like they were all over the place. Like each one had a certain thing that they really focused on. One had like a whole checklist of things, and I was like, "Oh, that was a great catch. Yep, that's perfect." And this was the lady who's is she north of London, Delta?
Yeah, Maggie.
Yeah, and she found all kinds of things because I used some American slang that just didn't suit right. So I was able to just go in and change one word, and that way it just widens my audience a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're just fantastic. You really have. That's something that a lot of writers need to learn how to do, is accept feedback, because it's not somebody trying to hurt your feelings. It's somebody's trying to help.
Yeah, exactly. It's you have to drop they're criticizing me, and adopt they're trying to help me.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I've rewritten whole books based on feedback from my beta readers, and they know that. So they're very invested in giving me their honest feedback. And I have a chat group on Facebook where we talk all the time, and I can ask them things and they can ask me things, and things go back and forth. So it's really fun, and they're friends, and I love all of them. But I also really expect them to be really honest with me, and really, and what always cracks Chris and I up is you have people reading the same book. They all come up with things. Right. Sometimes not only the same chapter, but in the same paragraph. They may get some of the same things, but they'll also each have things the others all missed.
Exactly.
And you're just like, what the hell? And they'll say to me, I don't know how I missed that. And I'm like,
exactly.
Ladies, I'm the one who wrote it. I missed it. So
even after all of the editing that this last novel, Paradise Bewitched, went through, that had deltas, I had 4 extra beta readers go through it, tons of eyes on this thing. Even after all of that, it gets to Renee, our PA, and she's formatting it for me, and she finds something, and I'm like, I was like, you realize how many eyes have seen this thing? And
it does happen. It
happens all the time.
There's no such thing as a perfect manuscript. There really isn't.
You're right. There isn't. No.
I don't care how many people have seen it. I don't care how much money you've spent on editing. I guarantee you, when it comes out, you'll flip open a page and there will be some typo.
Like,
and you're like, that's in your like,
right. In one of my kids' books, I read it. I used to go to the schools. I read it over and over, and I had people reading it. And it was a popular book. And then all of a sudden, like 2 years after that or something, I looked at it. I go, one word was wrong. Something didn't match. But nobody noticed it, but I found it, and that's what happens. Even no matter how many times I read it to the kids, but there was that one word. And that's the thing, when I wrote screenplays, I could do one sentence, like one part of dialogue, 16 times till they said it the right way. Because if you don't say it the right way, it's wrong. The person's reading it, or the actor, let's just say, was looking, it doesn't make it doesn't make sense. So and that's why you see some things on TV and you go like, why did they put that person in? He or she's not doing it justice. And then you see somebody, you go, this person is so good that, I'm always like so happy when I see a series that everything worked, because it's hard. I think people are going like, well, they didn't like this or that, but to get a series, that's an hour, and that's 2 hours or an hour. Some of them are 45 minutes, but they're an hour. And if they have 10 episodes, that's a long write, and so it's gotta, and people don't realize that, they criticize for a lot of times for the wrong reasons, and then the writer has to listen to it. They'll put it on Rotten Tomato or wherever they put it on. And I'm thinking, like, what are they talking about? Like, years ago, everybody had rejection letters. But if you're independently publishing, you don't get those rejection letters. So you don't get that same feeling that, I have to do better, or, why didn't they like it? But that helps a writer when they start and get rejections. But a lot of the writers don't get it now because they don't send to publishers like they did.
Well, I think one of the problems I see with writers, and not just beginning writers who've been writing for a while, who complain about their sales, but they're unwilling to look at their own process. They're unwilling to
Right.
look at what they're writing.
Yeah.
Are they writing to market? Are they writing a quality novel? Are
Yeah.
they, meeting readers' expectations?
Yeah.
I was talking to a group and somebody said, well, yeah, she said, I write for myself. And I looked at her and I said, then you're never going to be successful. And
Right. Forget
I
that.
thought the woman was going to throw her
Right.
cutlery at me.
Yeah.
But that's the truth. The truth of the matter is, if you're writing to be successful, you have to write to market. Period.
Mhm.
End of conversation. I'm done now. You
Yep.
can bend that and do what you want to do, but it must be what readers want. And if you call it romantic suspense, you jolly well better give them a romantic suspense. If I call it a romantic suspense and make it a sci-fi, unless there's a romantic suspense main plot line through that sci-fi book, I'm going to have romantic suspense people angry at me and sci-fi people angry at me. People have expectations of certain genres, and you have to be careful what you call them.
Well, sci-fi better be sci-fi, because there's no room for that. Anything.
Yeah, but it's the same in anything. If I go to read a rom-com, I want it to be funny.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting tremendous angst in a rom-com. And people read what they want to read, and I think you should read whatever you want to read, and I don't think everybody has to read the same thing. Right. But they have expectations, and they should know. And when people say, "Well, I had somebody DNF a book," they could have just read it. Why? Why would you read a book but you're not enjoying?
Well, that's a problem, like the genre, because sometimes you see a series or you see something and they go, this was a comedy. And you go like, what? It wasn't a comedy. And they're, just because something has a few comedic lines doesn't mean it's a comedy, that's the labeling of books also, even when I watch, let's say Hallmark, okay? All those, there's not a lot of hearty laughs, it's just a sweet story. So that's probably now one of the things they go sweet story instead of because a rom-com, rom-com should be funny, but there are some serious parts to some of these now. They've mixed it in, which is very hard for people when they're picking out what to watch.
Yeah, I think I just think you have to meet readers' expectations,
Yeah, I agree with you.
And if you're not being successful, you need to look at everything. You need to look at your writing. You need to look, was it edited well? Were there a bunch of typos in it? Right. Do you have the right cover? Does that cover fit in that genre?
Yes.
Cover. How did you handle it? Does the title tell them what you wanted to tell them? There's so many parts. And if you say, well, I'm not going to look at that. I think I'm the world's greatest writer. Maybe not. It just depends. If you're a great writer and you still have a lousy cover, you're not going to do well. So there's so many balls to juggle.
Yeah, there are.
And you have.
We talked about covers yesterday when I was talking to you. Now, some of the big name authors, their covers, they're not good. They're just not good. That's it. Simple as that. They really don't look good. But they have a lot of money behind them and a lot of things like that, but they could do better on the covers.
I agree.
Like we talked about Dar. She's great. Dar Albert. She's really good.
Dar is very good.
That makes a difference. I think it's a big difference.
Well, it almost broke my heart a few years ago when you had that main switch in romance going away from Manchester to the cartoon or the generic covers. They, there is something to Manchester. So number one, you're advertising and you're letting the reader know this is a steamy romance. There is sex in this book if it's got a Manchester.
Right, exactly. Right.
And there's just a great Manchester. Perfect example, right? So when we released our anthology, it had what did they call it?
Object cover.
An object cover. It was an object cover, right? Yeah. Well, after what was it, Delta? Like 3 months, my husband comes up to us and goes, why didn't you guys do Manchester on this? And then we were all just looking at each other like, what? Why didn't we do that?
And
Shit.
then we looked at Nathan and said, "Why didn't you say something sooner?"
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we republished. Well, and we published it with the Manchester cover.
Yeah.
And it does so much better. Like when we're at
Just
live
so
events,
it was like, okay,
they sell out. Yeah.
yeah,
They do so much better.
And if you give them a choice sitting on your table, they pick up Manchester. It's the Manchester.
Yes.
But yeah, it's so important, and I understand if somebody doesn't like Manchester, or they don't like an animated cover, or they don't like whatever it is, and that's fine. But the fact of the matter is, you have to publish something that goes and fits in your genre. And the best way to do that is go pull up the bestseller list in that genre on Amazon and look at the covers. And the most successful covers, you can see the sort of the common theme. The outliers will be the really big names, okay, but you can see the thing. And there's just all kinds of things you have to worry about, like Facebook. If you have a gun on the cover, they won't let you use it in your advertising.
Right.
You have to use something else, and so you have to be aware of those things and accept them for what they are.
Yeah.
And you have to understand when the market changes. If you think you're going to buy, there was a time that you got a great cover and it stayed on that book for 20 years.
Yeah, right.
That no longer is the case.
It's still on there. It's still on there.
3 to 5 years, you say if your backlist starts to dwindle, you turn around and you change the covers. I did that with a series, and I made it suddenly resold, and it had this resurgence. And all I did was change the cover. I didn't change the title. I didn't change a word in the book. I changed the cover. That was the only thing I did, and it was worth it. So I've got some books that are coming back from the publisher I was with. The rights are reverting to me, and I'm going to recover all of them.
Yeah.
And go from there. And I've had some readers who love those books and are like, no, don't change the cover. That's the cover. I said, then buy it now. Because,
they'll still be on, because that's one of the bad parts of because Amazon does not take a book off. So it can be an old book with the same title, but they keep it there because once books sell, they won't let you take it off.
Well, no, they will. They'll let you change the cover, and it'll change almost immediately on the ebook cover. But any books they had printed in as paperbacks, that's what paperback is exhausted, and then they'll change over. Now, you as the author can order author copies, because I've had people say, I ordered it and I got the old cover. It's like, well, that's because what Amazon had in stock. And I apologize. And I usually send them one of the new covers. But it is what it is. I mean, it's become very competitive. And I think if you want to be successful, you have to really look deep and look at what you want to have and look at and it's all about, I hate to say this because people hate it when you say this. It's all about branding. You have to decide what your brand is, and everything has to feed to that brand.
Yeah.
Everything. And if there's a disconnect between your logo and what you're publishing, or your logo and your website, if there's a disconnect, people are going to see it. Like my banner, I decided I wanted a new banner to go to signings. And I said to Dar, I want a new banner. And so she created this amazing thing with claw marks down it, and I write a lot of shifters, and the tag was shift into Delta's world. I mean, it's really, but it's very different than any of the banners around me. Yeah. It stands out. It catches your eye. And I have, from the moment I started using a banner, I had readers would come up and but authors would come up and go, "Oh my God, how did you do this? This is amazing." And I said, I hired somebody who's a graphic artist. I don't do that. I can't do that. That's not me. I hired her and said, "Sure, do this," and she does. But that's really, it's important, and it's not cheap. I'm not going to say that. It's not as expensive.
Yeah, because, a lot of writers, they just can't do these things, and that's how it is. And the problem is, though, you can have everything right, but when you look at Amazon and you all of a sudden see they put you in another genre without you knowing it,
Oh
you've
yeah.
Mhm.
missed your audience. And I don't know why they're doing that. I have to keep going in and looking. And because they just switch it without
Well,
saying
Mhm.
anything.
I had a book that was a paranormal shifter book, and they had it in classical romance, and I was right next to Jane Austen,
Yeah.
and I thought, oh yes, because Jane Austen and I write so much alike.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I just sat there and laughed at it. I mean, I
I'll just
thought,
call you Jane from now on, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just like, excuse me,
I know.
Well,
but
one of my books was listed as what was it, religious western, and I was like, oh my god,
What?
that yeah, exactly. And it's a steamy romance, and it's a western,
Right.
but it said religion, and I'm like,
I
oh no,
know.
no, no,
So
no,
that's
no.
that's the other thing. And years ago, not now, but years ago, you could call Amazon and you would get someone and they would actually change it as you're talking to them. They don't do
Mhm.
that now.
No.
But and it was so easy. You could call them and say, "Listen, this is in the wrong thing," and they put it in, and then I said, "All my books aren't in order because this is what happened," and they fixed it. Now this is not happening.
Mhm.
well,
Between
you
that
can
and
do it, but you
Facebook.
have to jump through a lot of hoops to do it. But I
Mhm.
tell people I was doing something and somebody wrote me and they said, how did you get Amazon to fix that? And I said, the phrase you want is it diminishes the reader experience if
It
you
what?
don't do XYZ.
All
Because
right.
for all their faults, and Amazon has a lot of them,
Yep.
one, they are the 800-pound gorilla in the room.
Mhm.
Yep.
And two, they really do care about the reader experience.
Yeah.
They
Mhm.
don't care so much about the author experience, but they care very much about the reader
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
So if you can point out to them that they'll make more money if they do what you're asking them to do,
Yep.
generally will do that for you. I mean,
Yep.
sometimes I bang my head against the wall about Amazon, but usually we can get them to do what we need them to do by pointing out, not getting all angry and hot under the collar with it, but showing,
Yeah.
just
Right.
lining
Yeah.
out the way and showing how that's going to make the sales better for them. It's going to make the experience better for the reader. Because, like Irene's talking about, they put her in religious westerns. I'm sorry, I've read Irene's books. I got to tell you, somebody who's very conservative and very religious reads one of Irene's books, they are not going to be happy.
Yeah.
No,
Right. No.
not at
People
all.
don't misunderstand me, but
Right.
that's not what they signed up for.
Yeah.
I mean,
It could be a tough crowd out there. It's a tough crowd. I know.
yeah, it's always a tough crowd.
Yeah. And also for the authors, like myself who have many, I do children's books. I mean, I give advice. My advice is try to stick to a genre. You're better
Mhm.
off. I didn't because life was different then. I've been doing
Yes,
this for 20 years, so it's different. But that's a problem. When you have because you're marketing to so many different people, it's hard.
Mhm.
I have several genres, and it's very difficult to market. And that's why you can never get a foothold because if you have one book that's like like a memoir, that's standalone. So it's hard so we're trying to do different. I change different things, but it is hard when you do different genres.
I think you
You
can
know,
have genres that are, I always say, they say stay in your lane. I think you're okay to go into an adjacent lane. Now, like I write romantic suspense, but I write contemporary romantic suspense,
yeah,
but I also write contemporary paranormal romantic suspense.
right.
Yes,
That's
they're
different. Yeah,
different, but the lanes are right next to each other. I had
yeah,
a gal who said, I finally found my lane. And I said, oh, what's that? And she said, alpha males. And she said it with a lot of pride in her voice. And she'd really worked on coming up with that. And I looked at her and I said, that's not a lane. That's an effing superhighway. And she
yeah.
got very mad at me, but it is. Everybody writes alpha males. Don't tell me that's a lane. That goes across all lanes. It doesn't tell me if you say to me I
Right.
write alpha males, I'm still going to say to you, and what do you write? And what's interesting to me is when you ask people what do you write, and they can't tell you. They're like,
Yeah,
well, I write steamy. Okay,
yeah,
what kind of steamy? Historical steamy, Regency
yeah,
steamy,
yeah.
contemporary steamy, Western steamy, paranormal steamy, and all this. And they're like, oh. And it's like, if you can't explain to me what you write, how do you expect to write a blurb?
Right.
How do you
Exactly.
expect to advertise? How do you expect to talk to people at a signing?
Yeah.
You got to be able to tell them when they come up and say, "What do you write?" And they can tell looking at my covers. I write steamy, but that doesn't tell them anything. You know, the shifter, the paranormal ones, you can tell they're shifters because the animals on the cover. But I mean, it doesn't tell. You need to be able to tell them what I write. I always tell people you need a 15-second elevator spiel.
Yeah. Well, that's
Tell
like
me
a log line.
Yeah,
A log line is
floors on an elevator.
yeah,
What it is
yeah,
you write.
yeah.
What the book is about. Because especially with a lot of the younger generation, they've had so much information coming at them for so long, their attention span isn't great. You need to catch them in that first 15 seconds. Once you have their attention, they're with you the whole way. Don't misunderstand me. I like them. But you got to catch their attention. They won't give you 6, 7, 8, 10, 12
See,
chapters to get to the point.
You know, there are a lot of men that read
Why they
books.
should care.
You know, there's a lot of men that read books. So the categories, if you are really, if like I've noticed that a lot of men have read my books, and so romance doesn't, like I remember once at a book signing, I have love in the titles. He goes, "Well, that's a woman's book." I go, "No, it's, you know, it's not, because my characters are male." So I think that's a problem, because that, what genre is that then? I mean, you know, because I was thinking, you know, if you put in like men's books, sometimes they think it's sexier, or, you know, what, there's no category for just general, you know, because your audience could be something different than what it shows. You know, I'm shocked sometimes when somebody has read it and the review, and I see, oh, this is a man. I'm so glad.
I got into a discussion one time with a guy who was saying, well, you know, you romance writers, you set up unrealistic expectations about men for women, and then we just can't measure up, and we blah, 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 blah.
Oh, well.
And they said, oh, so you think what women fall in love with in male characters is the muscles and the big dicks and the, well, yes. No, honey, that's not what they fall in love with. They fall in love with the guy. They may like all those things, all that, you know, stuff, but what they fall for is a guy who listens, is a guy who's loyal, is a guy who is faithful. Those are the things they
who treats them with respect and listen.
That's
and
what
really, that is
for.
the truth. It's not about looks.
No,
either.
It's not.
No,
so
looks no.
But yeah, you heard certainly, and
right.
You've never seen Irene's husband. He's quite frankly gorgeous, but
he is. I'm quite partial to him, but
you know, but I mean, there's this. The guy and I ended up having a really good conversation. He said, God, I never even thought about that. And he was another author, and he was at a signing I was at, and he went back and he read a couple of my books, and he goes, wow. He said, I really was going to write you and say, no, you're wrong. See, da-da-da-da-da. And he said,
yeah.
And I read a couple of your books, and you're right. At the core, your men are all faithful. They listen. They're strong. They're not overbearing. They respect the women they're with. You know, he said, and I thought, oh wow, okay, hang on, you know. And so I think that's really fun. I like. It's always fun when you go to a signing to sit with your friends, but it's also sometimes really fun to sit with people you don't know.
Yeah. I like to hear from people I don't know.
Delta loves changing people's minds. It's pretty funny.
Well, you know, I think, you know, over the years, when I started 16 years ago, I had a lot of romance that were sexy writers. It was just, you know, on the tip when everything was really changing and people were really loving those books. And, you know, it's changed now because it's just a story. It's not all sex, you know, and I think people get the wrong idea. If you say, you know, sexy romance, doesn't mean they're in bed 24 hours a day.
We write about relationships.
Right.
I had a guy come up to me once and said, you just write sex books. I said, I write about relationships. Do relationships have sex in them? If it's a good relationship, hell yeah, it does. That's what we write. And we write about really good relationships where it's a true partnership, where there's a true connection. And women crave that. We crave it.
Yeah,
I think that's where people dismiss romance writers. Irene can tell you, and Marsha knows.
exactly. Right. That's
I
true.
have a thing about romance writers. Like, we are responsible for the majority of sales of books, and
Yes.
yet, and especially steamy romance, it commands the largest market share of anything. And yet, we're expected to accept crumbs from the table and tell people we're grateful that they let us come. Yeah, no, I'm really kind of tired of that.
Yeah,
With the
it's bad.
joke
It's
where I
bad.
say I am
Look at
Delta Epic
TV. Look at
James,
TV.
you know,
Look at the television series.
yeah.
There is so much sex. And sometimes I'm thinking, oh my God, how are they even having this on the air? And it's sexual content, but this is really having sex on the air.
Yeah.
But it goes through the censors.
I think that people have gotten much more accepting. And I had a friend of a reader of mine who's a friend. Her friend said, "Oh, I don't like that sexy stuff in books." And Amy said to her, "Well, then just skip over it because the books are good without it."
Right.
That's the point.
That's
The
true.
writing
That is
has to
true.
be there. You can't just. I had somebody say to me, "Well, I'll just drop some sex scenes into the book." I
You can't.
said,
Oh, that's no. Yeah.
No, it doesn't work that way. You have to have that buildup. You have to
I
have
know.
that. There has to be a payoff for the reader when it finally happens. There's all kinds of stuff that goes into it.
Look at, you know what, the historical novels. Oh my God, they're filled with sex, just filled, and they don't say that much about that, but they are filled with sex. I mean,
Well,
because
what's funny is it's a historical novel that has sex in it, right? But it's not listed as a romance. But then you have a historical romance that has some sex in it, and it's more about the relationships, and it's called smut.
That's
what
so wrong.
infuriates me.
It's very wrong, very wrong. Because because I think that the reader, I mean, look at so if that you're right, just turn the page, move on.
Yeah.
I mean, the fun part was her friend came back to me and she says, Amy told me that, and I sort of laughed. And she goes, and she was right. They were really good, even if I didn't read the sex part. She said, but then I thought, well, what's all the, what? She goes, and I realized I was really missing something. Those were really good.
Right.
And Chris had an appointment at a doctor's office. And she says, well, what do you do? And she said, well, I'm an alpha reader for a romance writer. And she said, sure. She said, oh, who is she? And she said, told her romance. She said, but she writes very, very steamy romance. And she goes, oh God, honey, at my age, it's the only way I can get it anymore.
Right.
And so it is
nobody knows who's reading their books. I mean, look, anybody could be reading them. I mean, so this is how, just enjoy the process of writing and write a good story. That's it. A good story is a good story, no matter what you do. So, I mean, that's what my show used to be called. A good story is a good story because that's the truth. It doesn't matter as long as it's a good story.
When we were writing the anthology, I had Connie and Irene and Annie all saying to me, how long should it be? How long should it be? And I just kept saying to them, I don't care. Tell your story.
Right.
I don't care. Tell your story.
Yeah,
because
say
that's
what it is.
important. People say, how long are your books? However long it takes for me to tell my story. And that's what I think writers have to let go of. It has to be X many words or this many words or this many. Tell your story. If you tell a good story, honestly, I don't think the readers much care.
No, right. That's what they care when they close that book. They like the story. And so that's a good thing. All right, so we're almost over. This is been a great show. Yeah, I hope you two will come back again. And I'm going to do more panel shows like I used to do with more people. So I already told Delta that. So please join us. Because I like those shows to hear from every. It's good when you hear a few people at a time talking about what they're doing. It's fun. Yeah. I like that. So all right, when is your book out? Do you know?
Which one? Delta, when does that come out? The anthology?
I think March of next year.
Yeah, Whiskey and Ashes. But we're going to start working on book one probably in the next month or so.
Yeah, and we'll bang that out. And we've kind of got an idea of what we're going to do with it and all that kind of stuff. And it's good. I find it very energetic to write with somebody else in the room. I mean, we throw ideas off of each other. And
I
we
think
look
it's
at
a good,
things
yeah,
and,
sound, yeah.
it's just,
Yeah.
it's very
And
interesting.
just so you'll come on with the book. Right?
Absolutely.
You'll come on, we'll talk
Yeah.
about it. Yeah.
We'd love to.
And yeah, I have bbeen known to have like 9 people at a time. That was too crazy. That was with Gina. That was with Gina. Oh my God. All
Okay.
right. Anyway, just as like, listen, everybody have a good holiday and enjoy, because I can't even believe it. You know,
same to you.
Thanksgiving, and then the whole year, geez, goes by fast.
Yeah, I
But
know.
and then right, so yeah, we're going to have those shows because I think people want to have fun and they like to listen to people having a good time talking about writing, and
Mhm.
hopefully some people will pick up. Sometimes you could write by longhand. If you don't
yeah.
want to, yeah. So I mean, if people are out there that just want to write longhand, just start it any way you can. Just start it. I sometimes write longhand.
You do whatever
It
you have to
depends.
do to make it work for you.
Yeah,
That's
right,
right.
exactly. Exactly. All right. So thank you, ladies, very much. It's been a great show. And I'll
Thanks,
go back to
Marsha.
looking at the cloudy day. Cloudy
Yeah.
day.
Well,
All
I'm
right,
headed
thanks
out.
again.
I'm headed out in my exciting author life to take one of my basset hounds to get her stitches out at the vet. So,
Oh, Ava. Yeah.
Yeah, today.
yeah, but it's fine. She's fine. I mean, everything's fine. So, I will talk to you ladies later. And thanks
All
to
right, thank
everybody.
you so much.
Bye.
All right, thank you both. All right, goodbye. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Okay, now I got your driver's